This segment is part of our Chasing the Dream initiative on poverty and opportunity in America. Good evening and welcome to MetroFocus. I'm Jack Ford. Tonight, a question for you. Have you stopped using cash to buy things? Well, more and more people around the country have and are now just using credit or debit cards when purchasing goods. Along with people going cashless, so are some businesses. But what if you don't have a credit or debit card? What if you're underbanked, as 25% of New Yorkers are? What if you're undocumented? What if you're homeless? What if you just like to use cash? Well, when you consider a cashless society, are we also looking at, in some ways, a biased one? Bronx Council member Richie Torres has strong opinions on the issue, and he's tackling it head on, and he's here to talk with us about it. It's always good to see you.
It's an honor to be here.
So you and I were talking beforehand, and I said to you, I walked into a store in New York. I like to use cash rather than cards for normal, lunch, that type of thing. And I walked in, I got some lunch, and I got to the counter, and they said, we don't take cash. And I actually said, really? We don't take cash? So let's talk a little bit about why you are concerned about that notion of cashless businesses.
Well, most people have the same puzzled reaction that you do. When you open a dollar bill, it reads, this note is legal tender for all debts, public or private.
Right.
So if I have cash, which is the legitimate, universally recognized currency of the United States, on what basis can a business deny me the ability to use cash to purchase food, shelter, and clothing? But increasingly in New York City, we have a rising tide of what is known as cashless businesses that insist on credit only and that refuse to accept cash. And my concern is, even if the policy appears to be neutral on the surface, it can have an exclusionary effect on the most vulnerable New Yorkers, particularly the underbanked, which is 25% of our population.
I want to talk about that in a second. But just to give us a sense of context for this issue, what are the reasons that have been offered by businesses when they say, all right, we're going to go cashless. We're now just going to do based on credit cards or digital billing?
The reasons can vary. So some will claim efficiency. Others will claim cleanliness. And then there seems to be a misconception among some business owners that everyone has access to credit. When in fact, 25% of New Yorkers are underbanked, and it's disproportionately true in communities of color.
When we say underbanked, what do we mean by that term?
There's a lack of banks in various neighborhoods throughout New York City, particularly the lowest income neighborhoods. There are a number of New Yorkers who have no credit rating or too poor credit rating to qualify for credit. And so if you have no access to credit, you have no means of purchasing goods and services in a cashless marketplace.
So you might have the money in your pocket to do it. You might make, your wages might be sufficient to allow you to go to a grocery store and buy and take care of your family and keep food on the table, roof over your head. But if you don't live in the credit card world, then some of these businesses are saying to you, you can't do business with us.
And you're effectively excluded. It's fair game in a capitalist society to discriminate based on price, but I would regard it as unfair to discriminate based on method of payment.
Do you think there's any intentional discrimination going on here with these decisions by businesses to go cashless, that they're trying to limit in some way the classes of or the types of customers that are coming into their stores?
I think as a general matter, it tends to be discrimination in effect. But I suspect there are some businesses that knowingly adopt these policies, knowing that it will filter out a certain clientele from their businesses.
If you look at it, and I mentioned to you, I just happen to like to use cash more often than not. I've seen in some of the stories about this, some people who are saying, look, I do this as a budget mechanism for me, to keep myself on budget. There's studies that have shown that people will spend more when they're using a card than they will if they're taking cash out of their wallet. So you have people saying it's a budget tool for me. Other people saying that it essentially keeps them from overspending, even though they could afford it if they want to. So, and then the other people also say, and by the way, this is sets up a scenario where the businesses can be making more money to their bottom line. So how do we reconcile those two?
I would argue that whatever efficiency gains come from a cashless business is outweighed by two considerations. First is privacy, right? There are people who prefer cash for reasons relating to privacy because it does not involve the sharing of their personal information, right? Credit cards have huge quantities of information about our locations, our whereabouts, because we're constantly engaged in credit transactions. And there are many New Yorkers who prefer to use cash because it's much more protective of their privacy. Second is civil rights. Since 1965, there's been a recognition that even private businesses are public accommodations and have an obligation to treat all of their customers equally, regardless of whether you pay by credit or by cash. And so ultimately, my bill is about affirming the principle of equality in the marketplace.
Tell me what the bill would say, and then let's talk about what kind of support you're getting for it.
So the bill would require every retail and food establishment to accept cash, right? Credit should be and can be one option among many, but it should never be the sole option because it has an exclusionary effect on underbanked and vulnerable New Yorkers. So you would be required to accept cash.
And what sort of support are you getting on both sides of the aisle on this?
I mean, the response has been overwhelmingly favorable. I have the support. We seem to have the tentative support of the mayor, who voiced support for the concept of banning cashless businesses. I have the support of the chair of the Committee on Consumer Affairs, which will hear the bill in February. So the support has largely been favorable.
What would be the time schedule then for this to get done?
So if we were able to secure a hearing in February, as I suspect we will, then we can get the bill enacted by mid to late next year.
We'll have you come back and talk about that, but I can't have you here without bringing up the topic that we talk about so often here, which is NYCHA.
Yes.
And basically, I guess, give us an update. What's going on?
Look, NYCHA remains, there's been some breakthroughs. The general manager and the new chairperson were able to strike an agreement with the Teamsters, which represents the majority of the employees at NYCHA, which would require the employees to work earlier on weekends. So for the first time in 50 years, we're going to have caretakers earlier in the morning, later in the evenings, on weekends, available to do work in NYCHA. The only issue is that many of the problems that NYCHA residents are facing are related to skilled trades, like plumbing, plastering, painting, basic repairs, and the new contract fails to cover maintenance, skilled trades, which represents the need for repairs. So that's the downside of the contract. But there's also the threat of the receivership. The federal government is threatening to take over public housing. And if that happens, that would be the first time in the history of New York City that the federal government has stripped a mayor of control of public housing.
You think that's an empty threat, or you think they would follow through on it?
The threat has never, is it likely to happen? No. But the risk of receivership has never been more real because NYCHA is in a state of emergency.
So there's some reasons for people on the other side to say, let's do what we have to do so that we can avoid the notion of receivership.
The mayor has never been under greater pressure to improve conditions in public housing because he has the threat of receivership hanging over him.
Well, we'll see where that goes to. Council Member Richie Torres. Always a pleasure. Good to see you.
Always a pleasure to be here.
And always good to get your thoughts on all of this. Thanks for joining us. You be well.